Hey, what's going on, guys? Inglorious Gun, and we're back with more Marvel Rivals here in Season 1. Actually playing some DPS today, which admittedly is a nice change of pace from the rank series. It's primarily just Vanguard, and then occasionally I will play Healer, but there's just so many matches in between with my climb right now where even if they are wins, I don't really feel any inclination to share them because I feel like the games are really either long or so drawn out and boring that there's really no visual appeal. But thankfully with this match, we actually do frag quite a bit. We have a lot of really good clutch ults, especially at the end. And, I'm going to use this video just kind of as a venue to talk about my thoughts on the DPS class, or duelists rather, their impact currently, and especially their, how do I put this in a delicate manner, right? There's been a lot of discussion about, like, role importance and balance, and I've kind of touched on this a little bit prior with DPS being kind of circumstantial in regards to its utility, and I think a really clear and concise way to convey that is a story that I had yesterday, a few games, right? So we were playing King of the Hill. We were a point up. This was going to be the end of the match. We had lost the second round, and they had a Psylocke that was absolutely just fucking bullying me. Like, I would walk out of spawn, immediately get one-shotted, and she would do this repeatedly, right? To the point where you're like, alright, this person's fragging so fucking hard, and they've completely shut down the DPS, the team must be faltering. But in reality, because they were so focused on killing me, and essentially doing their job, right, but not in the parameters of their team or around the objective, they still lost the fucking match. You know, so while they might have been the superior DPS in that game, because their talents were not being utilized in specific key moments, like, hey, getting all those wipes so we can push the cart into the next checkpoint. That way we have a time extension. Or just other key differences here and there. You know, I've definitely been on the other side of it too, where you're playing DPS and you feel like you're getting kills or killing healers or whatever have you, but in reality, your team is backstepping so often that they have just been walking in the cart the entire time, and it's fucking infuriating. And I've played, oh dude, that was a nice fat ult right there, and then I got fucking yoinked immediately. I somehow escaped with the skin of my teeth, but thankfully I was able to run right into my healers there. Playing all the roles, I talk about this like alchemical rock paper scissors balance of, everyone in a team game obviously being essential to performing well, right? But if you're not applying the fundamental values of like healers in the backline that should be in view of their team to provide the heals, but nowhere near the front, so they don't have to deal with any incoming damage, right? And try to preserve their health as much as possible. And then if we have people that are diving, you have DPSs kind of in the midline behind your frontline tanks, and then potentially a dive tank that can peel off and go back and help those healers. And that's how every game should go, realistically. But that is just not the case, especially in solo queue as well. So, there's a lot of times where, yeah, you know what, like, people would be quick to blame the DPS for a given game, but did the DPS have any kind of opportunity in between swapping whatsoever to establish presence when they have such like an oppressive front on the enemy team? And then on top of that, like, how long am I waiting to get a heal, even if I'm in like spitting distance of these people, or supports that move too far up? I've definitely done this, and this is stuff I'm trying to correct in my own gameplay. But it's just it is a give and take of a lot of little microcosmic decision making that just ultimately most people aren't paying attention to at a given time, because I feel like they have a propensity to get overstimulated by the amount of variables that are happening in a given scenario, right? Like, that was a perfect instance. I should have waited to use that ult because I knew that Luna had already started her ult, and instead of waiting it out and then using my my maximum pulse to potentially get a frag, instead I fucking died there. But our rocket was very much on it, and then we had the revive. I was able to jump back in. I'm not sure to much utility, to be honest with you. But, that aside, that's just like a small scenario there. But, playing DPS as well can be extremely demoralizing. I know we fucking joke about, people insta-locking this shit in. But admittedly, like, the performative nature of having to do well at DPS is very impactful, like, on your perceived abilities, right? Even if it's a character you think you do well with, you can totally have a match where you're just getting fucking shit stomped, and then you try to swap to, what would archetypally be the best character in that scenario, but cohesively your team is just like fucking shitting the floor, and it's just not helping. So, you do have those games where you're like 20-7, right? But then you have games where you're fucking 1-9, and it's an up and down, and it is definitely extremely arduous in solo queue specifically, as I've touched on in prior videos. I can really attest to this game kind of pushing me at my limits, where I was really close to getting out of gold 1, and I'm like, cool, I'm going to get back in plat. And then I deranked through 2 days in a series of numerous losses with wins sprinkled in between, right? All the way back to silver 1, and now thankfully I'm back in gold 3. But it's just, a lot of it's on what I was doing respectively and failing on my part in my respective role. And then, bad teammates just being bad fucking teammates and having to play around that. But I think being cognizant and mindful of situations like whose ult has what, especially healers, right? And in this case with Iron Man's ult, if it's positioned right and you're given enough time, you can get a lot of frags like that. And then look, both their fucking healers are down. Okay, that was the ideal use case scenario for the ult. And I think if I had preemptively tried to use that, and maybe I pushed out a healer ult, which would have been cool, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think my team is going to really capitalize on that. So I have to make sure that I'm getting the most bang for my buck, when I'm using my abilities and applying damage. But Tony Stank specifically, very strong in the meta right now. We're running the Strange and Hulk composition, so we got the gamma radiation boost. I think a lot of people sleep on the 10% bonuses. Yeah, I think a lot of like anchor health is obviously cool, but for any of your characters, like for instance Scarlet Witch with Magneto, getting a 10% damage increase, considering she doesn't really have to aim, and then on top of her right click, if you do end up hitting a critical, is fucking huge. But it's all circumstantial. It's never really gonna have the same utility match to match. Obviously positioning and your capabilities with a specific hero can definitely provide you extra mileage in a sense. But if any of these people had like actually been good and like hit their shot against me, I should have easily been dead with the amount of health I had. I just thankfully had teammates that were around that were distracting them, which is the most you can kind of ask for when you have a DPS. DPS should be flanking ideally, right? And setting up the best possible angle that they can, so that way they can disrupt the backline, get rid of those healers, and then you start peeling off damage-wise. But if you don't have frontline tanks that are providing any kind of like, presence, in addition to doing that damage yourself, if you do have kind of an oppressive frontline, then it's all just gonna fall apart, and that's all on top of like your healers if they're doing their job, on top of making sure that they can attend to the amount of damage that's being dealt. And if you're putting yourself in the best kind of position to be healed, and for case in point, right, if I'm fucking diving 5 people, I'm probably gonna get melted, and I can't blame my healer if I don't get healed in that situation, because even if they had attempted, I realistically would have died to the amount of damage, right? The incoming damage was ultimately way higher than whatever minuscule amount of healing they could realistically do. So it's just very easy to get conceited, get lost, and start judging others harshly for their incompetency. And I get it, like we all definitely have valid frustrations with the quality of the teammates we have, especially when you're solo queuing. But I think most importantly, understanding what I can improve on respectively with my given play, and not that cucked ass fucking that ult there. I was really hoping that was going to be a cool angle, but that didn't do shit, unfortunately. It's really all you can ask for, and I think just on the basis of playing the numbers game, you will climb eventually, but it's obviously a time commitment, and when that limited time is spent going on a loss streak, it makes you not want to touch the game, and can definitely dishearten you on thinking you can further improve yourself whatsoever. But you'll see towards the end of this round, I do swap at least twice, and that does go to our team's benefit, which is discussed as a pretty, cornerstone attribute to like a good player in Marvel Rivals, right? Is, if you play flex, you can play any role. That's obviously ideal, but also having backups just for diamond ranks and onward, obviously playing with that character ban. It's good to have additional people in your roster, but also understanding that, like, with specific counters in this game, there are certain heroes that are going to do better in certain scenarios. And, I always talk about Punisher just kind of being like a good through line in terms of that, right? Generally, with his turret and his ability to lay down damage, he's really good against tanks. Or aerial combatants like Iron Man specifically, right? It's really annoying to fucking deal with Iron Man if you're trying to play Hela, but if you're Punisher and you can just kind of spray bullets down, hit scan's a lot more ideal. So that's just kind of a specific instance there. And not everyone's going to want to do that. I get it. Especially if you're on a huge time commitment or you only want to one-trick a specific character. I think it's more or less just an issue of, like, I want to play Iron Man. Why am I being forced to not be able to play Iron Man because I have to accommodate a specific swap within the game? But, that's just one of the nuances and the mechanics of how the game is structured. And unfortunately, if you can't play and circumvent around that, like, maybe some of the top players can, your mechanical skill isn't going to mean shit ultimately. And that stubbornness is going to continually cost you more games and ultimately make you a bad teammate. I think communication obviously being such a cornerstone and making things a lot easier. There's a lot of subconscious and just general play style things to keep in mind as far as game sense go when you're in a ranked match that just most people let off to the wayside. And I think the autopilot can definitely put the blinders on, and it leads to a lot of stagnated games, which I've run into a fair bit. I fucking hate playing payload, and you're just getting rolled on defense all the way to 3, and now it's become a matter of, like, okay, we either obviously are just going to spend the next 4 minutes not getting the 3 points that we need to bring out OT, and then even if we do get to OT, which magically does happen, whenever you're there in that make it or break it scenario, the game's already been going on so long that in reality, your team will probably choke again, and then you feel like you just wasted your entire fucking time compared to, like, playing King of the Hill, which is my preference just because I feel like the matches within the, first to 2 kind of structure at least seem to go by a little faster, given the wipe dynamics and how that progresses. But that's just a personal opinion here. You can see I tried switching to Namor, and I can't make this character work. I know people sing his fucking praises. I see his utility here. But at least in this circumstance, I was not doing shit for damage. Granted, fighting without my team here, probably not the best idea. But thinking he was going to be a solution, he in fact just was not the character I was looking for in that specific time. So that's going to lead us to the ultimate fallback. I think I tried giving him one more shake after this. But I do end up swapping to Squirrel Girl at a pretty pivotal moment. And I think that her damage capacity, along with her kit, the fact that she has I guess you can call it a silence, but, realistically a stun, in addition to, like, her ult, which I often find is very misutilized. And you'll see, like, a really good application of it. Honestly, the ideal application of it towards the end of the match. But she is just a fucking powerhouse, and I really do like having her as a pocket. There has been a lot of games where I have definitely been kind of losing, or our DPSs have not been performing well, and then swapping to Squirrel Girl at the last moment kind of allows that crowd control damage that sometimes you're kind of missing when you have precision heroes and their healers are on top of it. All that damage is kind of getting mitigated, and all those good shots that you think you're hitting are being wasted essentially, right? So Squirrel Girl has a lot of damage potential, but yeah, that Hela had popped her ult, and given the positioning she was in, that's just fucking open season. The cloak did try to keep us sustained there for a moment, but it was it was to be expected with that kind of exchange of ultimates. But here we are. We're about halfway to the ult, and we're just going to start jumping in and trying to lay damage down. I just knew something wasn't working here, and especially on Namor, it just wasn't kind of getting the job done. But I felt like, you know, given her kit, this would be more ideal. Obviously, this first life was not a good indicator. But coming up to this last moment of the match, things actually played out, and this character pick saved us in a lot of ways. Not to take all the credit, obviously, but I definitely feel like I hit a big play here, and otherwise we potentially would have been going into OT or just losing the match route outright. But yeah, we use her E ability, we queue up 2 stuns there, Squirrel Stampede, and it's just fucking open season. We clean it up as well, and before you know it, victory is ours. There's no more time left to get back to the cart, and that's going to be match. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this ramble, a bit of a different video, a bit of a longer one as well. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for watching. The support's been really cool so far, and I'm excited to keep continuing to grow the channel and potentially put more diverse content out there.